Hey guys, subscribe for daily content, and if you're shopping for gear, make sure you check out the description for the newest items at some of the very best online retailers. There's also links for some of the items that I personally recommend. Thanks! What's going on YouTube? Metal Complex here, and today I've got another interesting knife review / knife overview to share with you guys. This is the Artisan Cutlery and Dirk Pinkerton Banjaara. I think that's how you pronounce that. What does that mean? My best, looking that up and trying to figure it out, as far as I can tell, it's similar to the word nomad. I think. I could have that completely wrong, but I think that's where they were going with that. I appreciate Artisan Cutlery sending this in for me to take a look at it and share it with you guys. This knife will be available. It should be. I'll link it down in the description. You guys can check it out if you want. It does help my channel when you use those links, but that's entirely up to you. So let's go ahead and start off here with a measurement real quick. The overall length of the Banjaara is coming in at a little over 8 inches, about 8 1/8. Blade length is 3.5 inches, and cutting edge is also 3.5 inches, thanks to where the edge sort of ends and meets with the same line on the frame. How about some size comparisons? Any custom scales you find in this section can be found down in the description under Original Goat and Others. So up against the 8010 and the 8020.5. It's a big knife, not quite as robust as something like the 8010, but definitely larger than the 8020.5. Let's go ahead and put it up against the Spyderco PM2 and the Spyderco Para 3. And then finally, let's go ahead and put it up against the Benchmade Griptilian, or in this case, the Ritter Hogue and the Hogue Deca. I'm sure you guys might be wondering at this point, why does this video seem different? What did you skip? What did you change? I wanted to get well into the video until I brought this up, but I have cut out a huge chunk of my intro. I want my videos to take off a little bit faster, and I understand the irony of taking time in a video to explain why I removed an intro and that the purpose was time saving, right? Only to take the time to do this. I understand that, but I wanted to point that out. I have changed the position of my Instagram and TikTok to just be included in the first part of the intro, that first 11 seconds that says there's links in the description. That way we're not taking up a whole bunch of additional time doing that, and we can just sort of jump right into it. This was a suggestion made by a user in the comment section. To that person, thank you very much. I think that was a good suggestion, probably one I should have made a long time ago. So moving forward, you might still see the cards periodically, but I'm not going to take time to actually announce that they are there, because the TikTok and the Instagram will be at the beginning of every video anyway. So there you go. That's what we're going to do from now on. Anyways, yeah, you'll still get the leather slap on unboxings. I'm not going to take that away from you. Come on. What do you think I am? Some kind of monster? No. Let's go ahead and do carry profile. Thickness up against the Spyderco Para 3. It's about the same, maybe slightly thinner. This is... Hold on. I was going to label it as contoured, but I don't think it is. This appears to just be a flat area right here. If this is actually contoured, where we would look would be this piece right here. If there is curvature, it's so incredibly subtle. Artisan Cutlery does do that, but they also make flat scale knives. I'm gonna say I don't think so. I think this is flat with some heavily chamfered edges, giving it sort of the illusion of contouring. Don't think it is. I gotta be honest with you though, it's really hard for me to tell. I mean, I will let you guys take a good look at that one flat area that would be the indicator that it looks kind of flat. If you can see curvature there, then maybe, right? I can't really tell. But the titanium appears to be well finished and well machined either way. Why does that matter? Because contoured titanium is much more expensive to create than a flat piece, right? With the machines required to do that are much more expensive. But yeah, let's go and do carry profile, length and height up against the PM2 and the Para 3. This knife closed up is shorter than the PM2. It's very tall though, especially with this butt end here. It does get pretty tall. It's definitely longer than the Para 3 closed up. How is the action? It's pretty good. Artisan Cutlery knows how to make a good, flipper. If you push button this or light switch it, it's pretty satisfying. I think that the detent could have been slightly heavier. If I try to fail this, I can, right? I wish that the detent was slightly heavier. Now, knowing that, right, I just adjust the force.
adjust the force. I adjust the force that I'm applying to it. Like push buttoning it is, it's okay. If light switch is a little more satisfying, but I have to apply a different type of force. I want to be able to just flip it with any amount of strength, and the D10 is going to allow the blade to fly open. It does that just fine. I think the reason that the D10 is a little lighter is probably to accommodate for, the people who want to open it like this. Now, the reason I think that the D10 could have been heavier is because access here is way down, like past the middle of the blade, which means even with a heavier D10, you'll still have enough leverage to get it out. If you heavied up the D10, it would probably be a little bit harder to flick it up here, but not impossible, right? There's also kind of a, you've probably heard it, there's kind of a zip sound when you flip this. Can you hear that? I don't know what's going on there. If it's, has to be the detent ball dragging on the surface. There's something that's a little bit, I can feel it right here. There's a zzz, and then right about here it smooths out. So there's something on the surface of this blade that the detent ball is dragging on that is less than ideal. That will almost certainly wear itself even over time, but right out of the box, this had a weird zip. Some kind of weird friction in there. I don't know what that is. It's definitely the surface where the detent ball rides, but it's a little bit strange. Just want to point that out. They might not all be like that, but this one definitely is. Let's go ahead and do a hardware check. I'm going to get out my tools as per usual. My tools are very inexpensive and very recommendable. You can find them down in the section of my description that talks about the tools I use on this channel. So I think it's got to be a T8. Pivot is definitely a T8. Body screws are, they're T8. They looked like T6. The pocket clip screws are definitely a T6, but the body screws are T8. That's fine. Good deal. No mounting position for the pocket clip on the other side, which is a real bummer. But you got two T6 screws for the pocket clip, which you'll clearly never have to take out. And then you got two body screws on each side, are all T8. As long as you have the right hardware, the right tools for the job, you should be good to go. Let's go ahead and weigh it. So what do we have for the materials here? We have titanium, some nice texturing, right? We got standoffs, no backspacer, titanium clip, and S90V, which Artisan Cutlery does a pretty good job with. 59 to 61 is where they're hitting it. It's where a lot of companies are hitting it. That is not an ideal range for M390, but it is a very good range for S90V. S90V can get a little bit harder, but that's like 60 to 62 is where most people prefer to see M390, like bare minimum. Like that's like a good like thumbs up. That's a quality range, right? S90V, their quality range, their thumbs up range is a little lower. 5961 is very, very good. It will definitely outperform M390, at least in terms of edge retention at that range. Especially if you're putting it up against industry standard M390, which is about 5961. Again, this is assuming that we're actually comparing apples to apples and the same geometry if we're testing two blades. I would say 58, if you see S90V 58 to 60, that would be the equivalent of, people moaning and groaning about M390's 59 to 61. So, anyways, what I'm saying there is Artisan Cutlery is doing a good job of their S90V. It appears to be heat treated well. I have not heard anything about those numbers coming back lower than advertised. And I'm also not hearing, because there's a lot of Artisan Cutlery S90V knives out there. I'm also not hearing a lot of community feedback in terms of negativity surrounding Artisan Cutlery's S90V. So that's great. S90V, I think, is probably like the best high performance steel that you'll find in this territory, this caliber of knives, which is your right around the $200 Chinese high-end production knives. Like the S90V is like, that's the good to go, thumbs up, that's a great steel. And I would agree. I really like S90V. I think it's awesome that we're seeing it so often. I think it's really cool that Artisan Cutlery is getting a lot of this stuff properly heat treated and the knife coming in at 200 or less. I think it's very cool, which is definitely the case with this knife. Weight on this knife is coming in at, and by the way, we have no milling for weight reduction. They just do not like to do that. Maybe that's part of how they keep their costs down. Wouldn't surprise me. 4.5 ounces. It's about what I thought it was going to be. Weight, little bit back from the pivot. I'm sorry, balance, a little bit back from the pivot, but not bad. Slightly butt heavy, I guess. Let's go ahead and measure the blade stock thickness, and then we'll get into the old meat and potatoes here. Blade stock thickness is coming in at, come on now, 115 thousandths. So on the thinner side. Meat and potatoes time. Would you guys have assumed Dirk Pinkerton on this one? I feel like this is a very not Dirk Pinkerton. I am used to straighter lines with Dirk stuff, but maybe I'm mistaken. This has that upswept trailing point Persian style blade, right? That sort of S curvature. A lot of people say knives like this kind of look like flintlock pistols. Yeah, kind of. But I wouldn't have guessed that this was Dirk Pinkerton. It's not doing anything that makes me go, oh my goodness, wow, design of the decade, right? There's not a whole lot that's new here. It's just subtle variation, right? Which I think Artisan Cutlery, honestly, it's not like and I like Migron. I think Migron's a great company, but they very rarely like deviate from the path. They have a few different shapes of handle and blade, and they like to stay right in there. Artisan Cutlery, they do a lot of this plain tie and the sand polish, right? But there's quite a bit of variation. And even when that variation doesn't translate to anything that's necessarily unique, it's still, they take a few extra chances, so I guess I appreciate that, right? But if you're thinking this knife looks very similar to a lot of other knives I've seen, yeah, you're right, because it does. I mean, it does. The answer's not more complicated than that, right? It is very tricky to be completely and totally original in today's knife world and at the same time create something that is functional enough that people actually want to carry and use it. I mean, you can design a knife that's totally unique and original, but I bet you it's not going to be very comfortable. I mean, we're at a point now where you got to just be absolutely wacky, right? But there's still room there, right? There's still people who surprise us. This, not going to win any awards for originality. I don't think that was necessarily the goal, but just throwing that out there. Access to the lock bar is very good. You can kick that over, let it drop down to the thumb, and it'll go right down to the closed position. Honestly, even with that weird friction area, it's still really smooth, right? I think it's just the weight of the blade. This is one of their knives that is sand polished, and I have been bringing this up repeatedly to Artisan Cutlery. This is a better one, right? It's not their best, but every time that they say it's a sand polished blade, when I see that on the outside of the box, I think this is going to be anywhere from a basic machine satin finish to nearly mirror polished. I still have, it's a satyr. I still have that knife, and I always use it as an example of this is the best sand polish they've ever done. And it was not mirror, but it was really nice. It was high reflectivity. Since then, I've gotten anywhere from blah to it's kind of shiny. Like, I just want to see that consistent. I want to see the same consistency. Like, figure out what it's supposed to look like, and then they should all look exactly like that. People bring up, oh, it's because they do the sand polishing on the AR RPM 9 and the S90V. So it's harder. Obviously, it's not going to look as reflective on the S90V because the S90V is harder. Now, the one that I have that's the best example is also in S90V. I've also seen versions of their AR RPM 9 that look just as good, and versions of their AR RPM 9 that looked like just a regular machine satin finish. So it's an issue with inconsistency at the factory. Plain and simple. They just need to get that down. This isn't bad though. This is pretty cool, and it does give Artisan Cutlery, or it gives people a reason to choose Artisan Cutlery over other brands if you are sick of seeing the typical machine satin finish or tumbled finish on everything. This sort of finger hole. Just thinking of Elden Ring. The area in the blade that's designed for you to manipulate with your index finger or thumb. I'm sorry, not index finger, middle finger, thumb, whatever you use. The edges are all knocked down, so you're not going to be shaving your fingernails every time you do that. Ergonomically, pretty good, right? It's a thinner frame, not a lot of meat here, right? The edges have some chamfering. There's a little bit of an abrupt drop off. It's literally a 90-degree angle, but it's soft at the corners, right? So not bad. Pocket clip, I think, is too long. It is at least flat, and it's sort of spoon rounded at the end, so it's not horribly offensive, but I can feel it. That combined with the fact that the frame is a little on the thin side, leaves something to be desired in hand, which obviously I think that will make itself much more known the longer you use this knife. I mean, if you're going to go out and use this knife barehanded for a half an hour, I think your hand's going to be pretty tired, right? So the lock-in is all right. I mean, it's comfortable in the sense that there's nothing like jamming into my hand and like nothing poking me, right? But the frame itself is not like absolutely, oh my God, comfortable. It's just okay, right? B- is what I would grade it for comfort. But it is definitely a shape that works with the human hand, so it's not going to feel like you're holding something that's not meant to be held, right? It's fine. A lot of belly here behind the edge. Reasonable, medium. It's not incredibly thin. It's not a laser beam, but it'll definitely cut and slice. It'll also be easy to touch up over time. Nice tip here, long swedge. If you like the trailing point blades, this has definitely got it. The handle scales, they do kind of like a curved diagonal pattern. It's kind of neat, gives you a little faux bolster look here. We don't generally see exactly this type of texturing. It's usually like horizontal or vertical or crosshatch or diamond, right? Frag. That's usually what we see. Sometimes we see the starburst, right? Or it's like the shell, like what you see on Herman knives. But this is a little bit different. It's fine. Gives it a little bit of personality, but nothing absolutely spectacular. There is no lanyard hole. You could attach it to a standoff if you want to. The edge will probably slowly eat away at that. I don't know. It's quite a ways off. Honestly, yeah. You could attach a lanyard down here if you wanted to, right? I wouldn't do it up here, but you could. There's no mounting position for lefties. They just said, sorry, lefties. So, sorry, lefties. Bummer. You know, it's a right-handed knife world. It sucks. I'm doing what I can for you. Pocket clip, again, a little bit too long. It's kind of a stubby bill. So it kind of mushes into the pocket seam, but not terrible, right? Great retention. We have a steel lock bar insert that doubles as the over travel. You have a stop pin that's internal and attached to the blade, so it runs on channels on either side of the titanium frame. No blade play up, down, left, or right. No lock stick, no double clutch, no pivot lash. Like I said, smooth enough to where the blade will definitely fall, especially as it gets past that gritty point on mine. I really doubt they're all like this because I've handled so many Artisan Cutlery knives. But up here, there's something in there that's just, I don't know what that is. So, detent, fine. It's clicky. Could stand to be slightly heavier with the flipper. Perfect centering at the tip with no detent lash. Nothing absolutely spectacular or unique about this design, but it is very functional, and people who like that, sort of Persian style blade, combined with materials like titanium and properly heat treated S90V will find this to be a good value. $199, which is pretty typical for Artisan Cutlery. It's good, right? This is one of those designs that's cool, and somebody might pick it up in the moment, right? Especially if it's like, you've decided you want one of those cool titanium frame locks that runs on bearings, and everybody's talking about S90V, right? And you're trying to save as much money as possible, so you're looking at that $200 territory. So this is like the first one that jumps out at you. I think people who are, sort of on that path, I think you'll really, really like this. This is not a collectible knife in any way, and there are tons of knives in various blade shapes, a lot of them within Artisan Cutlery's own line, that are plenty competitive with this. This is a super duper competitive area. It's a good value, but there's a lot of companies kind of doing the exact same thing, so there's a lot to look at, right? Doesn't blow my socks off, doesn't really offer any massive advantages in terms of utility over other stuff that's out there, but it does make a good tool, right? Like the blade is good for EDC stuff. The handle profile will allow for general comfort while you're using it. It's fine, right? It's just nothing absolutely special. So a decent, it's a regular old thumbs up for me, nothing absolutely exciting, but there you go. That's going to be pretty much it today, guys. Thanks so much to Artisan Cutlery for sending this in. Please make sure to follow me on Instagram at metal_complex. Here's where you'll see the cards during reviews at the end. Please make sure to follow me on Instagram at metal_complex and on TikTok at the_metal_complex. If you enjoyed this video, leave a like. If you'd like to check out my other content, I do, of course, have lots of videos of knives that are either expensive or inexpensive that I do or don't like, so check those out. And if you enjoy all my content, go ahead and click on that Metal Complex logo right there and subscribe because there's definitely more coming. Thanks again for watching, everybody, and have a great day.